Hey folks, this is Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Do you ever feel like state politics are hard to follow? Do you wish you could hear directly from the people making the decisions? Do you really know what your elected officials are doing, the policies they're pushing, and how those choices impact your community and your daily life? Tennessee Today is a podcast where I share an inside look at state government, what's happening, why it matters, how it affects you in your daily life. No political spin here, no confusing jargon, just real discussions about the issues shaping our state. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Eversole, who is the chairman, big job, chairman of the Hamilton County Commission. Now, I'm going to read out your resume here just briefly so the listeners know who you are. He served on the commission since September of 2022 and was elected in September of 2023. Now, the chairman position rotates.
It does.
Right?
It's an annual rotation. Well, it's not a rotation. You're voted on. So every September, the first meeting in September, the commissioners get together and decide who they want to lead for the next year, so who the chair and the co-chair will be.
Yeah, so are you eligible to get reelected? I mean, can you be it consecutively, or is it always rotated?
Yeah, this is my second year on it, so I was consecutive this time.
Well, what does that generally mean? I mean, does that mean that the commission likes your leadership style, or how do you interpret that?
I was humbled by it. I think when I was asked to do it again.
I mean, let's think of who we're choosing from here.
Yeah,
Joe Graham.
We have some good commissioners.
David Sharp. They're never going to elect David Sharp, right? I mean, they're not going to elect him. Who else? My old wrestling nemesis, right?
You got Highlander. You got Chip
Steve
Baker.
Highlander. You know, Steve Highlander coached against me, right? When I was wrestling at Baylor. He coached at Central. And he
beat you.
Yeah, well, he lied, which, But so Highlander coached a guy, really good wrestler, a guy named Greg Humphreys. Actually, Greg Humphreys beat me in the district championship when my senior year. But I wrestled against a bunch of guys that Highlander coached, and I like to tease him and say, "You used to say really bad things about me." Of course, you know how he is. He's like, "I've never said anything bad about you." I said, "Yeah, you did." But anyway, so they reelected you chairman. That's quite an honor because I'm used to seeing it rotate. I didn't realize if it was yearly or every 2 years. So it's every year.
It's yearly in September.
Okay. Well, you have 41 years of senior leadership experience at Walmart. Do you get, like every Christmas or something, do you get Walmart gift cards from Walmart?
Well, actually, I have a retiree discount that I got to keep at Walmart. So
that's such a...
Yeah, I know. That's kind of a good deal.
That's a good deal.
It is a good deal.
Yeah, that's so anytime you now, do you shop regularly at Walmart?
I do. I get the delivery to the house, and
oh wow,
that's a super deal. Go on your Walmart app.
Yeah.
Order your groceries and tell them when you want it delivered.
I know this doesn't have anything to do with your county commission, but I think it does indirectly. So, because I think it affects how, at least I want to think that we all bring our life experience into our elected lives, right?
We do.
And that's an important thing, right? We want people from different backgrounds because we all face different kind of issues. So when you were at Walmart, how were y'all wrestling with, and COVID, had you retired from Walmart when COVID hit? Okay, so you were there.
I was still with them.
So what was the mindset around moving from a physical store to people buying online?
I think it kind of sped up a process that we had already started, and the process we had already started was pull up. We put it in your car for you. You order it online, pull up, and we'll bring it out to your vehicle. It sped that up. We literally pre-COVID was having hundreds of people per week that would utilize the service, and then COVID, it changed to thousands of people per week.
Yeah.
Because you still need groceries, you still need to eat, you still need to survive, and it was a service that really they were able to use the app. It helped us expedite some things like the home delivery, in-home delivery that they're doing today. So
I carried a couple of pieces of legislation that were pilot pieces of legislation, like the Amazon robots that deliver in neighborhoods. We had to have legislation to allow for that, and I carried that legislation. So how do you think those of us now that on the elected side of the world, the government side of the world, how have you seen, I know how I have, but how have you seen people's interaction with technology change their interaction with government? Do you see people like I do, people using technology much more to interact with you and your colleagues?
I do. I see the government being behind. When we still use, IBM servers that are ancient, and things have changed.
So
now
y'all are still on. We
still use some IBM products that are ancient.
Y'all talk about because in state government we have done a lot of cloud migration. I don't get into much of a technical conversation here, but it's really important. The public interfaces with government now in a different way post COVID, and a lot of it is people expect us to have certain technology that the government really doesn't have, right?
They don't. And I'll tell you one thing that the government does have. You can now, instead of going to a driver's license or a tag office, you can now do that. Hamilton County rolled out last year to where there's a vending machine that you can get your tag decal. So that's rolling out. So there are some technology pieces that the government, I think, is trying to get caught up on. But it's a matter of money. It's a matter of dollars. Where do you want to, fund those dollars? Because as government, you know as well as I do, our goal is to provide a service to our community. And that service for Hamilton County would be things like our number one dollar goes to our school system, which is over 60%.
Boy, don't I know that.
Goes to our schools. Then we got a health department. We're only one of 6 counties in the state of Tennessee that has our own health department. We fund that. It's not state funded. We're responsible for the corrections and jail and also the sheriff's office. So there's so many pieces that those dollars go to. When you get to the end of the line, there's not that much left in the pie to do road work, road improvements, intersection improvements, those type of infrastructure needs that we need.
Yeah, so they call me and hassle me about it.
We do.
Yeah.
We call you.
Give us more money. Right. And that's really true, right? Like this year, one of the bills, we didn't fund it. For those that don't know, I'm chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate, and we didn't fund it. But for the past couple of years, we've been having a conversation with county governments about the real estate transfer tax.
Yes,
a portion of the real estate transfer tax used to go to county governments. And in the early 2000s, when the state was faced with a real budget crunch, the state kept that, and we've never given it back.
Well, that's over $9 million to Hamilton County, and we did a resolution.
You want it back?
We signed a resolution.
I know you
and
did.
sent it to you a couple of weeks ago or months ago.
I've only got so much money, Jeff. I've only got so much.
We need that money back because
Well, we're working on that. We actually had a discussion. We have had a really long discussion this session about how do we fund that, because that's just for Hamilton County it's $9 million. I think it's $100 million overall across the state of Tennessee that the real estate transfer tax would call us. So the services that you listed, education, health, law enforcement or jail,
correct,
sheriff, those are all state services, right? I try to tell people the difference between Hamilton County government and the city of Chattanooga is that Hamilton County government is state government at the local level. You have no choice but to provide all of the services that the state government provides.
That's
You're just
correct.
doing it at the local level. Whereas the city can kind of pick and choose depending upon what their charter is, right?
That's correct. And that's why the county is so much different than the city is we're not chartered. We fall under the state of Tennessee Constitution just as well as the U.S. Constitution, and we can't create laws where the city of Chattanooga can because their charter allows them to. So
yeah, and I don't think people make that distinction often or even understand how that works, but it's a really critical thing, and that's why you have no choice but to do K-12 education. Whereas back in the late 90s, the city of Chattanooga decided, we don't want to do education anymore. So we're going to hand it all over to to the county because you have no choice to that.
That's correct.
So we all have different paths that how we get to where we are, especially in elected office. After all those years of experience at Walmart, why the county commission?
To me, county commission is where for me the rubber meets the road in Hamilton County. I live in an area in Ooltewah that I was watching rapid growth.
In the 11th Senate District, I might add.
That is true. And
well represented in the Senate, I might add.
And as it was growing, farmland was getting taken, subdivisions were getting put in. We were putting, 4, 5, 6, 7 homes per acre. Infrastructure was declining. Schools, we were having to move students from schools to other schools just for room. And I was at the point I was retiring from that leadership role and said, why can't I use my talents that I've had in the past to help us as a community? And that was my goal is how can we make a difference in government and approach it like a business sense? Because there's a lot of common denominators that are the same in government as there is in the business world. You got to have a plan. You got to have a mission. You got to create something that's sustainable, and you got to look for not only immediate sustainability, but you got to look for something that's 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah. Have you found, though, that, we call it government because it's government and not business, that things that you think should be an easy decision to make in the business world seem almost impossible to make in the government world?
I see that, but there's one word that keeps getting in the way, and it's called politics.
Yeah. Well,
it's politics.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, and if business in the business world, you put politics aside and you do what's right for your organization, so you can move forward because you got a lot of customers and you got people that's a part of your organization that you want to move forward. What's the same thing in government? You do have customers. Those customers are called taxpayers. That's who you represent. And I think a lot of times we create our own red tape. And I think if there was a way that we could reduce the amount of red tape on things involved, because there's too many people have to touch something that has to get done.
Yeah. So, I have too went into this kind of thinking in terms, and I work for a really large, like Walmart, you work for a really large corporation. So you're kind of trained to wrestle with the bureaucracy, right? And I work for a really large hospital system, HCA, and so I'm kind of used to wrestling with the bureaucracy. But I went in too on thinking of, making government run more like a business. And then I realized that legislative leadership, which is what you and I are part of,
yes.
It's a different kind of leadership, right?
Because
you do have to calculate in the politics of things, right? And what may be clear solution to an objective business person isn't so clear in the political world.
Correct.
Right?
It is.
And I know one that we're really struggling with across the whole state of Tennessee is how we manage our growth and development that we're experiencing. And I know no more than that than at the local level here in Hamilton County, where we are seeing farmland that you referenced that has been in families for generations, where this generation's like, hey, we're cashing out, and if you want to build 1,000 homes on it, have fun, because we're taking the money and moving to another part of Tennessee.
That's their 401k.
Yeah. So how what's been your sense of that in your community that you represent?
I think the sense of that's been mixed. It's been more of how do we keep it green? I'd love to keep it green. I was fortunate and blessed to be raised on a farm. We had cows and raised horses.
Are you from here originally?
Originally from Kentucky. I've been here for almost 30 years.
Okay.
But originally
a few more years and we'll continue.
Yeah, that's
we'll
right.
consider you at Tennessee.
There you go. But no, I've been here almost 30 years and was born and raised in Kentucky and on a farm and raised tobacco, hay. We had cattle, horses. And when I moved here, we were able to get a small farm here and raise horses. So I think, and that was in the Ooltewah area. And as you watched, as we continue to grow, Volkswagen kind of sped some things up, a lot of things up in the Ooltewah area. And it's because you want to work, live, and play in the same vicinity of where you work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when Volkswagen came in, it kind of put some pressure on Ooltewah. I mean, Ooltewah's it's beautiful.
I mean, I've lived here all my life.
You got the lake, the mountains.
Yeah. Ooltewah's just blown. I mean, it's just blown
it's great.
Up. Yeah.
But what we're doing is we're losing that farmland. And you can't blame the next generation farm that doesn't want to be a dairy farmer anymore, or that doesn't want to be a hay farmer. You can't blame them. That's their decision with their 401k. And what we've been doing is trying to figure out, how do you still have growth? Because you do want to have growth. What we found out 2 years ago or a year and a half ago is basically out of the 10 homes being sold in Hamilton County, 4 of the 10 we were reselling to ourselves. That means you're either a Hamilton County resident was either upsizing, downsizing, a family member was moving in, such as a kid or grandkid, or they were coming back to Hamilton County. And that's a pretty healthy amount when 40% of your home sales is actually
just internal. Yeah, just moving.
You don't want to ever shut that.
That's interesting.
You don't want to ever shut that off, because you do want your family to come back home. So we never want to shut that down. But we got to be smart about where we're going, because we definitely still want to be able to create an area to where we can have the rural Hamilton County still in place. There's an area that we can have white collar workers that can come out and get a baby farm that may be 10, 15 acres that they can what they would call piddle around with and have fun with, and then you got individuals that are growing that are maturing more today that don't have the desire for 10, 15, 20 acres, that maybe even don't even want a yard.
So how do we, because we're having that same conversation statewide, right? How do you preserve your agricultural heritage, which is on our state seal, while at the same time you grow your commercial life, which is also on our state seal? Anybody looks at the Tennessee state seal will see commerce at the top and agriculture at the bottom. And it's getting, particularly in East Tennessee, where you can't have a big farm in East Tennessee just because of the hollers and the hills that are here. But it is a struggle. I think locally y'all are struggling with it. Statewide we're struggling. We've been trying to put in place different policies that allow people to put their land into a trust, or the state's been purchasing land. But even there are some people who disagree with that philosophy, who say the government shouldn't be purchasing land, that it should be only in the private market and let happen to it what happens to it, right?
I think you got to have a balance. I think you got to be able to have government to jump in and help in some cases to preserve. But you've also got to make sure we're looking at things, and this is more on the federal side. How do you incentivize someone to stay in the farming business? What can we do to help a dairy farmer? What can we do to help a soybean farmer? Tobacco farmers are going away because we're importing more tobacco than we ever have today. And of course, that industry
they're growing hemp. So if you haven't seen the morning newspaper, they're growing hemp. And they're not happy with the legislature right now about the hemp bill that we just had. But that's and they're growing a lot of it.
Well, that's a farm.
Yeah.
There has to be ways that federally that the government can entice us to keep farming business going. If you go into the Midwest and you look at the corn farmers, the government is always subsidized in the Midwest. Why aren't they doing it here with some things? And,
So one of the things that we did a few years ago, you were hanging around when we did this. You weren't yet involved in the political world, but Mike Carter and I repealed the forced annexation by ordinance. I guess that was in like 2015. And part of our rationale for doing that was, one, we thought it was unfair that a city could annex an area and those people had nothing to say about it. But the other was, we didn't want the urbanized area to just gobble up all of Hamilton County. When we have 10 municipalities that are in the county, and if you just allow them annexation by ordinance before too long, you've got the city of Chattanooga that's
In Birchwood.
Yeah, it is in Birchwood, and we certainly didn't want that, and that was part of our strategy in talking to our colleagues, because that same conversation's happening all across the state of Tennessee, particularly in Middle Tennessee. I mean, it's conceivable that within the next couple of years, Montgomery County outpaces Hamilton County in terms of population size, because we're growing at 3% or whatever. They're growing at 6, 9, 10%. It's just amazing how fast we're growing. So, as we're talking about growth and development, which is really important, we're both experiencing and seeing at the federal level where there's a lot of uncertainty there, whether, certain programs are going to continue to be funded. You mentioned federal funding for farms and farm subsidies and those kind of things. And, right now the federal government in the Trump administration are apparently trying to go through somewhat of a financial reset, right? Of let's look at things that we're doing and decide, is this worth an investment of federal taxpayer dollars or not? Are y'all having those conversations at the local level? Are y'all worried about that at all?
We are. We're talking more about the Department of Education, what the next steps for it is going to be and how that's going to impact local. That's the main conversation that we're having is where is that funding going to come from? What's that going to look like in the next 12 months to 15 months? I think President Trump is trying to hit the reset button. Throughout the years, we continually have added nationally, but we've never taken away.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of legacy things out there just because, 5 presidents ago, they put it together and put it out there and it's no longer needed. So
you brought up a really interesting dynamic that I don't know that the public thinks about, but I want to take a minute and talk about it, even though it doesn't really have to do as much with the federal government. And that is the relationship that the county government has with the school board. Both are elected bodies, right? But the school board only has policy-making ability.
That's correct.
And everything that they want to pay for, you guys have to pay. So talk about how that dynamic works.
It's kind of unique because there's a maintenance of effort with the school system. And the school board and the county commission are two different bodies. They're both elected bodies to represent
but y'all hold the purse strings.
We do. We hold the purse strings, but the school board has the full responsibility of the school budget. They're responsible to approve the budget, even make the budget in some cases. Some counties have them making the budgets. They're responsible for any cuts, any additions to that budget. That's their total responsibility. When it comes to the county commission, we don't have the authority, nor by law are we given the authority to ask them to cut or add to any function within the county school system. That is totally up to the school board.
But you're not required to fund their budget request either, right?
Well, you have a maintenance of effort.
Right.
That we have to hit, which is the dollars last year.
Yeah. So to folks who may not know what that means, it means there's a base amount that you don't have a choice. And people may not realize this, but under state law, that base amount can never go down.
Correct.
Right. I mean, so if you, using simple math, if last year you gave the school system $100, then this year you got to give them $100.
That's correct.
Right. So that number always stays the same, but above the maintenance of effort.
We do growth money. We give them a percentage of the growth money back as well.
Are you required to do that? Do you know?
We're actually not required to do that, but that's a part of what the standard for that we have done in Hamilton County is give them part of the growth money as well, because we've experienced that growth and how it's impacted the schools.
So how and I know you're wrestling with this right now, right? So you've got I'm having my own wrestling match with the school board, but that's another story for another day. You've got a school board that's brought you a budget that's about $18 million short of what they need. How do y'all wrestle?
They've not actually brought us a budget yet.
Okay.
They've not actually. We've heard that they're wrestling with a budget that's about $18 million short. I met with Dr. Robertson, and he says it's down to about $6 million gap, and he feels like that he can get it down to about a $3 million gap. Again, when it comes time and they present that budget, if it comes to us and it's more than the maintenance effort and the growth money, then we have a decision to make. We have to look at where's that funding going? What is it used for?
I have personally, for me, one criteria: it must impact the student. It must be directly into the student. It can't be a central office. It can't be an added position that's not touching the student. It has to be something that's right in the classroom with the student.
So what happens if they're $3 million short and you choose not to fund it? I mean, they have to find the $3 million.
They have
right?
to find the $3 million. It goes back to them to find it.
Yeah. So indirectly, county commissions have a role to play in the funding. I don't think the public understands that, and in some states give the county commissions or councils and the school boards act almost independently of it. Like Texas, they have taxing authority that the school board has, and the county has taxing. In Tennessee, only the county commission has taxing authority. The other interplay that I think people might not realize that I would like for you to comment about, since you're chairman and you have to deal with this, is the cities, all the cities, don't have any kind of obligation to fund K-12 education. Anything that they choose to do in K-12 education is purely optional, right?
The city of Chattanooga, their sales tax is on a 50-50 basis. 50% of the sales tax collected goes to the Hamilton County school system. And the city of Chattanooga is elected to do that, as far as that's their funding mechanism for the school system. There's one thing that I've wrestled with in my 2.5 years being a county commissioner is 2 years ago, if you look at the budget the Hamilton County school system had 2 years ago compared to today, it's $140 million more. At $663 million is what we approved last year just for the school system. That's up $140 million. That's the largest growth of funding for the Hamilton County school system ever. As a matter of fact, that's 50% growth of what they were spending 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So my question is, if they're $18 million short, where is that money going? What has it been utilized for? And as I get phone calls, and I always welcome phone calls from constituents or emails, and as I talk to them and explain to them that, these are the dollars that have been received over the last 10 years, my challenge is ask your school board member, ask your superintendent, where are these dollars going?
So you've been talking about, the relationship between the county commission and the school board and how the funding works and how they present you a budget. But have you seen where, and I know I see it in state government all the time, the strategy of using one-time money for something that they know they're only going to have the money one time on a recurring or repeated offense, and then coming to you and saying, hey, you got to fund this because we did this last year?
You see it all the time. And right now, especially coming out of COVID, the federal government give a lot of temporary dollars to help school systems, to help even local governments, even state governments with some temporary money. And 2 years ago, we had conversations even with our school board saying, hey, these are temporary dollars. You need to make sure you're putting them in something temporary because there's no maintenance efforts for these dollars. So help your school system out. And it went into some recurring expenses, and it got asked for again. So we have seen it.
Yeah, it's a great leverage trick that entities will use, right? Is take the one-time dollars and then come to you and say, well, you can't, that will be a cut, right? And the people will be really angry.
And that's what they do. And sometimes they spread that message, and it goes to those that are getting cut, and then they come to you saying, hey, you can't let them cut my position. You got to give them the money for this. And
yeah, because they never tell people, hey, this is just for one time, right? They always, yeah. Are you having fun doing this? Not this podcast. Of course, you're having fun doing this, but I mean, are you having fun in your county commission?
I do. I enjoy it because to me, understanding the numbers, looking at the numbers, teaching the numbers has been fun for me.
I think people may look at you and me in kind of a similar vein in that we're kind of, I don't want to say maybe too serious about what we do, but I think they might see us as less than the most humorous people, even though I think we both probably think we have pretty good senses of humor. And I think the big thing about I love what I'm doing for the state, and particularly representing my district here in Hamilton County. Sounds like you love what you're doing.
I do. I've got a different face when I'm at work. When I'm on the dais or I'm in front of a group, I've got a different face. My wife will tell you that I'm a aggravator and teaser a lot and stuff like that. To me, it's time to relax and get a new face, and the kids will tell you that.
Yeah. Well, part of, doing conversations like this is to try and let people kind of see the other side of the political person, particularly an elected official that, struggles with really weighty issues. I mean, the county commission deals with really weighty issues, and sometimes in dealing with those, our serious personalities come out, and we don't oftentimes get to show the public kind of the lighter side. And so part of the reason for doing this is to try and see if I can show folks and have people see your lighter side. It's been great having you here. I hope people recognize that the important role that county government plays, particularly understanding that you are state government at the local level. Of course, I like to brag about state government and say we create the county governments, we create the federal governments. We are the center of the universe
That is
when
correct.
it comes to the political world. So cool.
I've enjoyed this. I really have. It's been fun.
We'll have you. We'll see what the ratings are on this one. If the ratings are
this
pretty
will
good,
be
we'll invite
ratings
you
to the
back.
roof.
Yeah, well, if the ratings are pretty good, we'll have you back. If they're in the tank, I'll keep up making an excuse of why I can't have you back.
The ratings go through the roof. I'm raising my commission.
There you go. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Tennessee Today. I've been talking with the chairman of the Hamilton County Commission, and we've had a great discussion. Tune in to the podcast Tennessee Today. Look forward to future conversations. If you have any questions, you can contact me at info at bo4tn.com.